to the Sharp Betting Pod presented by OddsJam with your hosts Randall and Steve. You can follow us on Twitter at SharpBettingOJ.
Welcome to episode 5 of the Sharp Betting Pod. Steve, what's going on?
Hey, good morning, man. Not much. Super excited NBA's back. Still trying to get over that extremely frustrating NFL week, but week 7's here tomorrow, so it's time to move on. And NFL can be a grind, as we said. So, gotta just let those bad beats brush off your shoulder. But yeah, like I said, NBA is my favorite sport, and there's going to be a ton of opportunity here. So, just been busy doing some last-minute work with some win totals and futures, and I'm ready to roll. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the bad beats in the NFL, and man, it seemed like every game that we're on anymore, the stupidest things have to happen in order to beat us. I mean, the one thing in that Dallas-New England game that can't happen happens.
Yep.
Same with Carolina, Minnesota, and yeah, it's frustrating. You know, you catch a good number on New England, 3.5, 4, and goes to overtime. New England doesn't score. You think Dallas just, settles for a field goal, but with the way Zerline was struggling, kind of don't blame him for just trying to score and not put the game on his leg. But yeah,
right.
two tough beats. And anytime the Faves go, I guess it was 9-3 on Sunday. That's usually not a good week for me as a player who likes to take the dogs. It was definitely one of those weeks, but nonetheless, moving on to week 7, like you said, and this week there's 4 games with point spreads of 10 or more, and you're starting to see the quality teams separate themselves from the mediocre, or the teams that just aren't very good. But in looking at a couple of these higher lines, Tampa Bay -13 to the Bears. The Bears obviously lost last week to the Packers, and in a game that, as Rodgers told Chicago, "I still own you."
I think with an F-bomb in there too.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. And, so that game is somewhat interesting to me. I mean, they're on the road in Tampa. Tampa with a little longer week. After the game against Philadelphia, and I don't know if 13's too much, but that game is a little interesting to me. And then one that I think might be overlooked a little bit is Jared Goff going back to LA. Stafford obviously playing his former team. After betting on the Lions last week in a game that we talked, and I said I could never back the clown that is Dan Campbell. They showed us why, and I don't know that I want to be on the Lions in this game. I was really glad to see him score 3 points so that the shutout theory was not in play.
Yeah.
But I think that's an interesting game to see, how Goff plays, heading back. And I mean, my goodness, I mean, it's, Lions getting 15 and a half. That's a lot, in an NFL game, but probably warranted as as bad as they are. So, Chiefs Titans. This is a game that's not, double digits, but it is a game. The Chiefs come into this game laying 5.5 against the Titans. The Titans obviously, off of that Monday night win against Buffalo, and I know that was a side that you and I kind of liked in the Titans on Monday night, and the Chiefs are 5.5 in this one. I just think there's a little bit. Yeah. I think there's a little bit too much love for the Chiefs.
It's the same dynamic. I mean, the Bills opened 3, got steamed up. And, I think it closed 6.5 even in some books. And it'll be the same thing here. I mean, the Chiefs will close 6.5, 7. 5.5 is a dead number at this point. Yeah, I mean, Titans, their MO under Vrabel's been the same. I mean, they play down to the bad teams and they get up for the good teams. So, and I mean, honestly, they've historically owned the Chiefs over the years. I mean, they knocked them out of the playoffs a few years ago. They've beaten them, I think they've beaten them 4 out of the last 5 times straight up. And I mean, that Kansas City defense. I mean, now last week they made some changes. They finally benched Dan Sorensen, who was just atrocious. I mean, not to sound prejudiced, but I don't think a white man has any place in an NFL secondary. you know, no, I mean, obviously I didn't say that joking, but no, like he's been he's been just horrendous, and they finally replaced him with Thornhill, and yeah, I mean, that defense went from being an utter sieve, like literally, you know, unable to do anything to, I mean, they only gave up what 15 points, I think. So, yeah, I mean that defense is better. They're they finally realized that they need some speed, and they can't just, as Mike Lombardi calls it, play battleship defense. Where they try to get one negative play per drive to get off the field. So,
Right.
for me, I think that the Chiefs. I mean, I still have them rated as my number one team in the AFC. I mean, we've seen them do this a few times under Andy Reid, where they start off poorly. I mean, they even did so. Granted, Mahomes was hurt, but they did so in 2019 when they ended up winning the Super Bowl. They did it, back when they had Trent Green about, I think, maybe 10 years ago, where they started off with only one win through 5 weeks, and they won 9 in a row and made the playoffs. So, Andy Reid's definitely, I mean, I have him as my second best coach. I think that, I mean, and you could argue that he's even maybe the best coach. So I think the Chiefs will be fine. For this game, I'm with you. Like, I'm going to end up being on the Titans for sure.
I think there's just a little bit. I mean, obviously the Titans coming off the win against the Bills, like we talked, but I think there's a little bit too much love after the Chiefs finally covered a spread. And one thing moving forward, I saw a picture from that Chiefs game in Washington. I don't know, I can't remember what your home field number is on Washington, but man, that stadium was empty. I don't know that the home field. I mean, that's something. Just a little side note to keep track for Washington home games. I don't know that there's that much home field advantage there. So yeah, that's probably for me. One of the most interesting games. This week, obviously as a Saints fan, I'm pretty fired up to see them head to Seattle and see what they can do there. Coming off of a bye.
Yeah, that should be a win. One thing that and this is, we can talk about this more on the prediction pod tomorrow, or for the Thursday pod. But like there's this great misconception that teams coming off buys are these tremendous bets in the NFL, but it hasn't been the case. It's actually like, if you would have backed every team coming off a bye over the last 5 years, it would have actually been like a losing proposition. Like, they only cover it like 46%, which seems shocking, but I think that's like a big time public misconception.
Yeah, so, no, I think you're right, and take Andy Reid's teams out of the equation, and you're probably in the 30s. So, I think you make a great point. I haven't even looked to see, but you mentioned that bye, and I think a lot of it has to do with some momentum that teams can, potentially build. And Dallas is a team that, I mean, they have all the momentum in the world going right now. And, now you've hit a, stopping point, or, a break in your schedule. And like I said, I don't know who they have next week, and, it may continue to burn money, fading them. But I think that, that could be a flat spot. Like you said, just you coming off of a bye, routine is a little bit messed up. And, unless you're Andy Reid, I think that that could be a spot to fade Dallas. But moving on here, try to keep this one a little bit shorter. I know you've got some thoughts, on the NBA. Last night the Bucks were able to cover against the Nets. The celebration of the NBA Finals really didn't affect them in any way, and then we saw the Warriors come back and cover against the Lakers. And, so what are any thoughts on, season win totals, team futures, or anything like that you want to share? And then we'll wrap this show up.
Yeah, I'll touch on a few that I like. I mean, as far as futures, I mean, My favorite bet of the season by far, and this is my biggest bet. It was last year too, but the Lakers to win the West. I mean, they didn't look great opening night. I fully expected that. They're working in that entirely new rotation. It's going to take a while, but they don't really care about the regular season. By the time that the playoffs get here, they're going to be the best team in the West. That was the case last year too. But then, obviously, LeBron gets hurt, AD's banged up, and that was a fluke season where injuries just totally derailed those playoffs. But barring injuries, no one's beating this team you know, come playoffs. The beauty of the NBA with futures is, unlike pretty much any other sport. I mean, I guess baseball would be the only other example, but in a best of seven, the better team wins about 90% of the time. Like it's not like in college basketball where one fluke game in the tournament, the worst team in the tournament can beat the best team. In
Yeah,
a best
absolutely.
of, in a best of seven, you know, it just removes that variance, right? So that's why the NBA playoffs, series betting is extremely profitable. Um, but as far as season win totals, I'll touch on two that I really like, or actually, I guess three. We can go through them quick. The first is the Bulls over 40. What is it? 43 and a half. I really love. I mean, I liked that team last year, and after they got Vucevic, because I've always liked Levine, and he's had no help. But they got Vucevic. It took them a little while to learn how to play together, but by the end of the season, they were one of the most dynamic duos. And now they added a bunch of new pieces. I love that team. Again, like, for them tonight, I mean, that line's open at 3.5. Seems really low against the Pistons. I like the Pistons long term too. I mean, I think it's a talented young team. But yeah, I mean, to me, I was expecting that line to open at like 6. And so the fact that it opened at 3.5, it's been steamed up to 5 now. I think Cunningham's out, but we'll see what happens. I probably won't end up betting that game. But yeah, the Bulls, I think, after the first month, when these pieces learn how to play together, they'll be a great bet. I also really like the Hawks over 46.5 wins. I mean, if you look at the East, okay, obviously the Bucks, they're very talented. They'll be there again. But like I touched on, last year was pretty much a fluke. I mean, if the Nets, if that entire team doesn't get hurt besides KD, they win that. They win that series easily, right? So they had a ton of luck to even get to the finals. Now, I mean, the rest of the teams in the East are clouded in drama. I mean, obviously, you have like Kyrie Irving drama. He's probably going to end up getting traded. I doubt he gets the vaccine. He's one strange cat. So, that's going to really hurt the Nets' depth. I mean, they no longer have a big three. I love that Kyrie Thomas or Cam Thomas draft pick. But yeah, I mean, as weird as he is, Kyrie definitely adds a dynamic piece to the offensive end, so that hurts. And then obviously, Philadelphia. I mean, they're just full of drama too. Bringing Ben Simmons back, suspend him. So so who's the next best team? Well, the Hawks, and I really respect what Nate McMillan has done. And when healthy, they're a top 4 team in the East easily. You could make an argument top 3. I mean, I think they're every bit as good as Philly. So, I think 50 wins as long as they stay healthy is probably the floor. So that's my second favorite win total. And then my favorite win total is actually my favorite team. I mean, I'm a huge LeBron guy. I'll be a fan of wherever team he goes to, but my personal favorite team, not that I let this influence my betting, but I'm just stating it for, I guess, the point of discussion. The Grizzlies. I mean, I know that you're a big John Morant fan too. We loved him in college. That was one of the coolest sporting events that I ever attended when I went and saw him play live in the tournament. But yeah, I mean, this Memphis team, they have a ton of young talent. They were in a lengthy rebuilding period, but now they're in, year 3. They have a ton of pieces between Morant. They just picked up Steven Adams, Bledsoe. Obviously, Jaren Jackson just got that huge contract. really like that draft pick of that young kid from Australia too. So I mean, only 41.5 wins, barely have to be over 500. I think they get there easily. I actually like them to win the division as well. That division's pretty weak. The only other bet that I was considering, but I'm going to stay away from just because it's Zion and I hate fading that guy, would be the Pelicans under 39.5 wins. He's already injured. The guy, I mean, he just came into the league so out of shape, and he'll never stay healthy. I think he'll end up being a bust ultimately, or at least a huge disappointment based on all of the hype he got coming into the league. But that number's low. I could see them, catching fire at some point when he's healthy and winning like 40 games maybe. So I'm going to stay away from that one. But those three overs, typically I like to bet unders because that way an injury can only help you. But yeah, those are the three overs that I bet.
Yeah, so the NBA, like you said, started last night, and it's an exciting league on a nightly basis. I mean, you never know what you're going to get,
Oh yeah,
night to night with late scratches and things like that. So it's
yeah,
it's an interesting league. It's a game of runs, and
yeah.
it'll be interesting to see kind of how the NBA season shakes out. And like you said, we'll be back later on this week to share our thoughts on Week 7 in the NFL, and we will see you guys later.
All right, guys. Catch you Thursday.